All right, kids. I was gonna try to do this over at Facebook, but it kept crashing and stuff. So I'm gonna try to do it here, man. I'm gonna record a commentary track, a quarantinentary track, if you will, for Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. If it's not subtle enough, you could tell it's right behind me, man. This is a flick that I love dearly. And doing a commentary track is always a little nerve wracking because you're like, what if I forget something? What if it doesn't? What if I've only got one shot at this? That's how we used to do the commentary tracks. But now, it's the digital age, man. This could be one of 96 commentary tracks for Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. It's the very first one. Didn't put one on the Blu-ray or the DVD. Some people were like, where is it? Here it is. We're doing it here in front of you. I'm going to keep recording it even if this kicks out, man, which it might. So until that happens, you're going to be involved. You're going to be here while we do the commentary track, man. Let's see. I got my smoke. Look at that face. That says quality. Caviar gold, son. Snoogans. Our lunar modules. There's a bunch of stuff behind me, including cool ass Silent Bob from Jay and Silent Bob Reboot action figure from the good folks at Diamond. There's a soundtrack. There's a cool shirt from the Chivery. Look at those damn games. You get them on Amazon, man. Jay and Silent Bob everywhere. Okay. The Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, I went on a 67 city tour. 67 cities, 3 countries, 4 months. We sold 65,000 tickets. It was wonderful. Every night, some people are like, you watched it every single night? I did. I watched it every night with the audience. Some people were like, that's, how could you have done that? Ew, how could you watch that movie that many times? Fucking love that movie. This movie took the place of my broken heart, after the heart attack. This movie, it became my heart. And so I put everything into it. I understand if some cats don't like it. It's kind of like Endgame. You have to see a bunch of movies before it would make absolute sense to you and stuff. So if you're not like a Clerks or Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, or Clerks 2, or even a Zack and Miri kind of person, Reboot, it would be like as inscrutable as a 3-year-old making a film, which, I believe was probably one of the reviews. A 3-year-old could have made this fucker. This flick means the world to me, man, because it's everybody that I love came back and played in the sandbox with us. It had been a minute and stuff. So I'm going to enjoy doing this. Commentary tracks are something I've been doing for 25 fucking years. First commentary track we recorded was for the Clerks Laserdisc. And it was, us while we were shooting Mallrats on the floor, I think at Jim Jack's room, recording a commentary track. Muse fell asleep, stuff like that. If you've ever heard that commentary track. So I've been doing this for 25 years, and you always get worried, will I cover everything? I ain't worried anymore. If anything we miss, I'll do another commentary track. This is the first of a series of Quarantinentary tracks, being that we're all stuck inside. So, I got time now to get around to some shit I always wanted to get around to, including a Zack and Miri Make a Porno Quarantinentary track, which I'll be doing next week or down the road, or as soon as I can get Moj a microphone on his end and we can do it together. But for tonight, Reboot's on the menu, kids. And boy, I could talk about this like crazy. So here, you don't have to watch the movie to play along. You just watch a fucking middle-aged man talking and shit. But if you want to watch the movie along with us, all you got to do is go to, let's see, Amazon Prime. That's where the movie's streaming. If you're an Amazon Prime member, Prime Video, they got it. You can watch it there. It's on iTunes. It's on YouTube right now. Vudu, anywhere you watch a movie, man. But if you don't want to watch it with us, again, I'm recording this for Smodcast. That's what this microphone's about. So, in fact, let me make sure that I can hear myself properly. You can see a little behind the scenes here. You can go to any of those places, spin the movie up, or if you just want to sit here and watch me and listen, you could always watch the commentary track later on, listen to the commentary track later on when it's up on, as an episode of Spotcast, which it will be next week. All right, we're good in the headphones. We're rolling. Trying to accomplish many things here at once. Okay. Are you ready, kids? Get your movie, cue it up to the very, very beginning, because we're about to take, I'm going to give you some aural. A lot of aural, some fucking filthy aural, as I talk about Jay Silent Bob Reboot, starring Jason Mewes, who lives around the block. He's nearby. You can watch him streaming on his Twitch channel, man. Making Legos, playing games and stuff. He played the Jay Silent Bob Mall Brawl game the other day. And it's Jason Mewes' finest hour. He's so wonderful in this flick, man. It's a movie that makes fun of sequels and reboots and remakes while being all three at the same time. It's a little wise ass of a movie, kids. It tries to have its cake and eat it too. A bunch of people were like, it's full of woke jokes and shit. And well, it makes fun of that too. So it tries to accomplish many things, probably succeeds at none of them, but fuck did I have a good time touring the movie, man. It was amazing. And, as now we're seeing like of course, in the middle of the coronavirus, the theatrical distribution or exhibition is not even happening. Is the first week there's been zero reporting, $0 at the box office since they started reporting it back in Variety. So our little model, which is really no model, we used to go out and tour the podcasts, and we still will when we're allowed to go back out. Reboot, we just took out and did kind of like that. The idea was like, well, let's record it let's go out and tour it like a podcast. And so we would go intro the movie, and then everyone would sit there and watch the movie, and I'd watch it with them, and I'd roll cameras in the back of their heads because I'd send people from the movie clips of themselves, like when they come up on screen in the audience, like, wow, this is going to be weird. This is the quietest viewing of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot I will have ever had, particularly at the very least in the last 4 months. Fuck. So it was just bliss, man. I loved, and we did the tour in real punk rock style. It was me and Jay for the first half, and then Jay's got a kid, so he didn't go on the second half. But my kid's an adult, so I did go on the second half. And when I was there for every damn show, in America, 65 cities, 95 shows, because sometimes we did multiple shows per night. And I watched it with the audience and enjoyed it. The audience made me love it even more because, as much as I know the material, they, were laughing at jokes I've forgotten I'd included and stuff. Oh, it was fantastic. I've described it as going to a church every night where I was both the priest and Jesus at the same time. I was a celebrant and I was being celebrated. It was really, really nice. So we'll keep doing this in the future. My dream is to do this for Clerks 3. I want to pay for Clerks 3 myself and then tour it all year long, pandemic notwithstanding. Hopefully we don't go through another pandemic. But if life gets back to normal and stuff, we can go out and meet in groups again like we used to. Then one day, that's what I'm going to do with Clerks 2. Tour just for like a fucking year straight. We only toured this bad boy, for 4 months. So like being able to, I could do that. I did it standing on my head. It was me and Josh and Liv in an SUV, sometimes Jay, in an SUV driving from city to city, man. It was so punk rock at age 49. And we didn't play instruments. We just put up a fucking movie and stuff. So, and during that whole time, man, 67 cities, 3 countries, 65,000 tickets we sold. We did meet and greets afterwards. I took a lot of pictures of people. Everybody came back. I was like, hey, and give them a big hug and shit, and put my hands on them for the photo. And then, hey, give them a hug, and then they left. So I touched many bodies, kids. I was interacting with a lot of people and stuff. I must be ground zero for fucking coronavirus because I've been through the population in a couple countries right before everything got shut down. Thank God we finished that tour right before the entire world shut down. So I was able to pay back my equity investors because we finished our tour and made money. So it was great. I'm going to keep doing this if they let me in the future. I mean, meaning the governments, if they open up, life the way it used to be. And believe me, I ain't bitching. It's like, keep it shut down until the virus is gone. But if ever anything gets back to normal and we get to make Clerks 3, I'm touring that motherfucker just like I toured this motherfucker. Oh, it was bliss. All right. Without further ado, folks, I don't know what the rules here are on YouTube Live, but let me make sure there's some proper courage. Hold on. Okay. Breath of fresh air, if you will. Take a peek at what you cats are saying before I dive into it, because once we start doing the commentary track, I'm gonna be looking here the whole time and stuff. Probably won't be looking there. If this feed gets killed, or if I get killed in the middle of this feed, call the police, please. Call my wife too. Let her know. She's right down the hall, but she never comes here, so she wouldn't know. But if it dies, it dies. If it dies, it dies. And I'm gonna still keep recording the commentary track, obviously. So if you lose me, that don't mean it's, oh my God, well, I've wasted all my time. You saw a little bit of it, and then you'll see the rest when we make it a podcast for smodcast.com. I mean, at least you'll hear it. Okay. One more toke of courage, if you will. Oh, I don't want to make it a commercial, but Snoogans, powered by Caviar Gold. Okay, kids. Queue up your movie wherever you got it, man. Wherever you got, you're watching it. If you're watching it on Amazon Prime, thank you. If you're watching it on your home viewing copy of Blu-ray, we were the #1 Blu-ray the week we came out. Go figure. I was so delighted, and then I was also so surprised that people still buying physical media, man. Which right about now, everyone's like, I'm glad I got my physical media and shit. So it's whatever you're watching it on, or here on YouTube, you can rent it and stuff like that. We'll probably watch it fucking free too. I'm sure somebody's uploaded it and stuff. Thanks. We worked hard. Okay, but wherever it is, get it ready, man. Get it ready. We're about to go. Spin it up to the 0 mark. This is coming from the Kevin Smith that was just on The Simpsons the other night, ladies and gentlemen. Cartoony Kevin Smith. We're about to go. Just a note before we go. Sorry about this beard. Normally I'm pretty cheek clean shaven, but as you can see, I'm totally neck bearding it. I wanted to shave, but my wife is insisting she wants to see how far this will go since we're locked down in quarantine. She's like, I want to see your caveman beard. So I'm gonna let her go in as much as I can till I can see like how much of a man I really could have been if I tried in life. So this is not to be, don't. I know I look disheveled, but it's a choice. Story of my life. Okay, here we go, man. Queuing it up to the 0 mark and pressing play. Here we go. Okay, the first thing we're going to see, something I never saw when I was on tour with this fucking movie, is the Lionsgate logo right at the top. Lionsgate, good folks that, gave us the sparkly vampire movies, man. They released Dogma back in the day. At one point, we were Lionsgate's highest grossing movie, Dogma was, long before the Twilights of this world and stuff like that, and the Hunger Games of this world. Saban Films, good folks at Saban Films, gave us some loot domestically, so domestic rights. This logo is an homage, if you will, to the opening animation from Clerks. You can almost see all the characters in the other movies, all the characters you'll see in Reboot. It's an homage to Walter Flanagan's artwork. He did the opening animation back in the day for Clerks for the logo. But I asked him if he wanted to do this one. He was like, "Fuck no, get a pro." So I did. Liz's logo, Liz Dastro's logo was there. That's our Smodco logo. And then the Armin Kevorkian and the good folks that do the effects, Encore, the company that did our effects, our limited special effects in the movie, and also they do the special effects on like all the CW shows. Armin just whipped that together, man. He's like, I got you something. I made you a Bluntmobile, and with this logo in it. So every night I got to see that play out in front of the audience's stuff. And every night this shot come up, quick stop with the vehicle approaching, man. People would start applauding. It was crazy. Boom, they saw those shoes, and then right here they'd be like, and start applauding for Dante. It was like a fucking Rocky Horror Picture Show. There's the great Brian O'Halloran as Dante from Clerks. I've been trying to tell that cock smoker joke the Jay and Silent Bob cocksmoker joke for so many years, man. When we were at the Lovitz doing Babylon and we did Jay and Silent Bob Get Old there, we had a sandwich on the menu I begged him to put on called the Jay and Silent Bob's Cocksmoker. So it took me a while to get here, but we got here, man. This sequence, this whole sequence you're seeing here, there's Donnell Rawlings and there's Dave DeSmalchin. This whole opening sequence you see here with the SWAT team, this came from the opening of the old Clerks 3 script. And once I realized we were never going to make that movie, I started hacking it up for parts. Mallrats 2 as well. So the whole movie here, this opening was supposed to be the opening of Clerks 3 and then led into the adventure on that movie, which barely took place at the Quick Stop, just like Clerks 2. So this movie barely takes place at the Quick Stop either, but naturally that don't matter, man. We just spent a little time here. That Quick Stop, by the way, is not the Quick Stop in New Jersey. We were in New Orleans for this movie, New Orleans, as they say. And I don't know who says it, but somebody does. Not the locals. And Nate, our production designer, built that Quick Stop for me, man. You can see a video of me online seeing it and crying. Here's one of our many callbacks to, all our other movies and stuff. This is Clerks 2, obviously, with Jay doing the tuck. And it's a little bit of a Zack and Miri homage as well because he's cut, you can see a heart into his bush if you look real closely. And then, of course, the other guy pops into the movie. Look at him wearing a mask. I predicted this virus stuff. Oh, if only I had that costume mask now, for heaven's sakes. Look how funny Don Ellis. Okay, man, that shirt that Jay's wearing is an homage to Walter Flanagan, who wore that Dark Knight Returns shirt forever, man. I love that shirt. Whenever I think of that Dark Knight Returns image, Frank Miller cover, I think of Walt wearing that shirt. And that's why Jay wears that shirt in the movie. His costume, if you'll see, hey, look, that's Jordan Monsanto, producer in the movie. Married to Jason Mewes, producer of his child, produces his whole life. There's Justin Long, of course, and Justin Long is playing his character from Zack and Miri Make a Porno. The only problem is I never say that. So, we didn't set it up properly. And in the first cut of the movie, he's playing Brandon St. Randy, essentially. And he, has it's Justin and he's a brilliant ad-libber. So tons of jokes about, hungry for cock and stuff. Because it made sense because he played a male porn star, gay porn star in Zack and Miri Make a Porno. However, we never say that in this movie. One simple line of like, I used to be a gay porn star, now I'm a lawyer. And we could have done many of the jokes, but when I watched the movie as I was putting it together, and I'm like, without the proper setup, if you don't know that guy was a gay porn star in another movie, it just seems like we're randomly having this lawyer just hungry for dick. So it all went away. I got 2 hours of footage of Justin Long just ad-libbing. He's a brilliant ad-libber. Ad-libbing, about how badly he wants to fuck Joe Manganiello, who's in this scene. You'll see him in a second. There he is. He's the bailiff in the back as Craig Robinson enters the courtroom as well. So this was, we should look at this gigantic courtroom, man. It's such production value. That exists in the real world. Of course, we didn't build that. That's in New Orleans. Justin playing Brandon St. Randy, Joe Manganiello right there playing the buffest D&D loving bailiff, in cinema history, and the great Craig Robinson, who agreed to come down and shoot the movie because we were in New Orleans during Mardi Gras. He was like, "You're shooting during Mardi Gras? I'm there." That Mardi Gras was helpful in casting the flick, man, because it was, some people like to go to Mardi Gras. There's Frankie Shaw. And so Frankie and I were in the Hollyweed pilot together, just like Donnell, who was in the opening scene. You'll see a lot of people I've worked with all throughout this, man. I use this movie like a scrapbook, man, and just kind of like, I want to put everyone out love in it. It's making this movie was like the whole final 5 minutes of Big Fish, where Albert Finney gets carried through his life and stuff like that. And he sees everybody he ever met and meant something to him. Same thing, making this movie every day. It was somebody new, like, oh my Lord, man, I haven't seen you in a while, and here we are playing. Plus, I'm so delighted I made this movie when I did, and not years before. That is the best I've ever looked on film in my life, man. I'm thinner in this fucker than I was in Clerks. So, I was delighted to capture myself on film at that point and stuff. I was like, oh heavens, man. And some cats, when the movie was in trailer form and coming out, they're like, you're too skinny for it to be Silent Bob. I'm like, that's all right. I'd rather be a fucking emaciated Silent Bob than like where I was and unhealthy and having damn heart attacks. Okay. So at this point in the movie, this sequence in the courtroom and whatnot, I watched it every night on tours. I watched the whole movie and stuff. There was set up in here that I was like, man, it's going to be so necessary to understand why they don't, own their names. And ownership of their names, was such a big thing in the first draft. This is a bouillabaisse of many drafts of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. I did like 20 drafts of this, taking from some movies and borrow of mine, like, opening with Clerks 3. And as I changed it, some things remained in the draft, but are like vestigial tales and stuff like that. Them losing their names when I first wrote the movie was a big deal. Like, that's why they got to go back to Hollywood and stuff. Ultimately, it didn't need to be that much. And it played nicely into the, later on at the end when Jay's like, I don't need my name. I got a new name and stuff. But it is kind of like a plot line that just kind of like gets dropped. They continue saying they're not who they are throughout the movie until finally Jay reveals who he is and stuff. But it didn't become nearly as important real estate as it was when I was originally writing this. The storyline with the daughter, Jay and his daughter, that came out of Mallrats 2. The Mallrats 2 script was all about Brody and his daughter Banner, who he references in the cut scenes and stuff. So here, this part where, Saban Films owns our names and stuff like that, that came very late in the drafts. Like while I was right before I went into production, I think is when I was like, oh shit, now, if Saban Films is going to be the distributor, we can make all sorts of like Saban jokes like we made Miramax jokes back in the day, which opened me up to be able to make like, Power Rangers jokes as we did and stuff. That was fun. But that got added late in the process. What you're going to see next, of course, excuse me. Sorry, man. I was drinking some of this bubbly. Bit of the bubbly, as Chris Jericho says. Who's also in this movie. Okay, so this whole plot point, you could never call yourselves Jay and Silent Bob ever again, is like such a sitcom-y thing. And thank God that's not what the whole movie's predicated on. In earlier drafts, Jay did not meet his daughter and stuff, so like that didn't kick in. It was just kind of more or less a straightforward redo of Strike Back. And then when I was like, ooh, I'm going to give him a long-lost kid and stuff. And that came from Jason Mewes, which I'll talk about later. Jason Lee, Brody himself. The audience would go nuts right here. They'd go nuts when they saw Brody's secret stash. And when Jason Lee came out, wow, the audience went crazy, man. Guy who owns all the comic books is right there over Silent Bob's shoulder, man. He let us borrow all the contents to fill up the store. A lot of Ranger Danger artwork all over, man. That was meant for Clerks 3 originally. Captain Ribman did that for me. But Jason Lee wearing that shirt kind of looks like his Mallrats shirt. Remember, the Mallrats shirt was all blurry image. The idea of the shirt stand on his shirt is that we pull focused on the shirt that he'd been wearing his whole life, and it was always Stan the whole time. And there's that Stan memorial you saw. How High gets the big shout out. Method and Red are kind of the Morris Day and the Time of Reboot in terms of like, we model our whole lives after him and stuff like that. As you see, How High just popped out now. I forgot, we introduced the 3 strains right before that. The 3 strange Snoogans, which we did. Snoochie Boochies, which we also did. And Berserker. They exist in real life. Caviar Gold makes those strains of weed, man. Here in California, Oklahoma, a lot of weed legal states, you can go in and buy that weed. Silent Bob here working with the phone. This was a running gag that, like, I thought was very amusing to me, where I was like, well, in the age of the emoji, he used to always wear that emoji right on his pin on his chest. He would love emojis. And so, boom, it's a lot of that in the movie. This day, shooting the scene, this is our first day. We shot this on February 26th of 2019. And Jay went into this day thinking like, oh, I'll just learn my lines in the chair while I'm getting my hair and makeup done. Problem is, you can't really do that on a Kevin Smith movie, particularly when you're the lead fucking character, because you've got tons of dialogue. And this is the big expository scene that set up the whole fucking movie and stuff. So it was a tough day, which should have been honestly like, you know, a 6-hour day because it's only like 3 setups. Even though it's an 8-page, 9-page scene, was a 15-hour day. We went over schedule and stuff. And Jay never, Ranger Danger cover by Captain Redman, Jay never missed it again. See that Captain Marvel, like over Jay's shoulder, man? At one point, Brody puts it on the shelf. That was our shout out to Captain Marvel, the movie, because Captain Marvel shouted out Mallrats and stuff. A return movie poop shoot. A little quick glimpse there. It's still around in our universe and whatnot. So in this sequence, this scene here, we do a tour all the time. We're on the road, me and Jay, doing a podcast called Jay and Silent Bob Get Old. And so during most of the shows for a good 2-year period, like I was constantly reading this scene from the flick long before we shot it to test drive it on the road with the audience, man. And so it's sharpened because of the audience. I love that little squeakle joke. We test drive the scene so many times, so I got to hone it to perfection, man. All that dialogue, me and Jay would read it out loud. I would play Brody. Obviously, Silent Bob has no dialogue. Jay would play Jay. And so I got to hear what was good, what wasn't good and stuff. This Marvel movie line with him, Brody calling Marvel movies a triumph of cinema, which is very in character for Brody, happened like, ironically, a month. The movie came out a month or two after Martin Scorsese was talking about how Marvel movies weren't real cinema. So, our finger was accidentally right on the pulse, man. There was some jokes I left out and stuff, like Brody went after, not hardcore, but he made a little joke at the expense of like the other Ghostbusters movie. But then I was like, you know what? Unnecessary, man. I don't want to turn Brody into like a toxic hate tank and shit like that. But he is Brody, and true to his colors from that we've seen in Mallrats and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, he does have a thing or two to say about pop culture. So Brody in this movie is taking on 2 roles. The one that he had in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, he introduces the boys to the notion there is a movie at all, in the comic book store. Then they go to Holden McNeil. Holden McNeil fills them in. Right here, you see Brody's telling him about Kevin Smith failing upwards, man. I fucking hate stupid Kevin Smith. One of my favorite lines in the movie. The idea there was we weren't going to have Ben in the movie, so I was like, well, Brody's going to have to do double time. And so he's kind of doing 2 jobs that from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, the one he did and the one that Ben did. But then Ben wound up joining us later in the end of the process. That was the scene, the last thing written for the movie in the last week of production was the spoilers coming up, the Ben Affleck scene, the Holden McNeil scene. So back here, when we were making the movie on day 1, didn't know that scene was going to exist, didn't know anything about Ben ever going to be in the movie and stuff. So Jason doing all the heavy lifting, Jason Lee, and he was wonderful. He said he hadn't acted in 4 years when we did the scene, but you never would have known it there. We all are looking at the audience, and when this played every fucking night, 1,000, 1,500 people like, wow, just like, wow. Oh, it was fucking amazing. Hey, fucking, I get to be in the movie. I mean, I get to be in the movie as Silent Bob, but I get to be in the movie as me too. And as much as I love playing Silent Bob, it was way more fun playing this version of Kevin Smith, kind of the Hollywood Babylon version of Kevin Smith. He's very this and very expressive, and he's kind of dumb at the same time and stuff, which I guess, is not me playing a character. It's pretty much my life. But I love this fucking little gag with we were shooting. I kept telling the boom guys, like, keep lowering it. And like, he was like, but if it's low, it's in your face. I was like, that's the joke. Keep doing it. And all of his training was to keep it up and stuff. But like for the joke, he let it come down, and you could see it was against every fiber of his being. Jason Lee, Brody having a Dixie cup. Come on, man. Little touches like that. That's little Easter eggs, if you will. For all the fan stuff. See the Eternity blocker in the background over Jay's shoulder? That's their version of the Infinity Gauntlet. Man. This was something for years. People would be like, whenever they do that in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, what's that a reference to? It was nothing. It was just something we did for that movie. Now when people ask me, it's a reference to that scene. Jason Lee, ladies and gentlemen. And look, oh my God, man. The fact of the matter is there are a couple SNL alumnus in the flick, man. And I've been a long time SNL fan my whole life. So, getting to work with anybody who's been on that show is absolutely huge for me. Molly Shannon, I remember she called the View Askew offices 1995. Brian Lynch was making a movie called Big Helium Dog, and he had reached out to see if she'd been in it, and she called, and it was like 12:30 in the morning or something, but I was still in the office working. And I think she just went to leave a message, but I answered, and she was so sweet. And she was like, "Yeah, I was just calling to say, like, I love the script, but I can't be in the movie and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, Brian asked you to be in the movie? Man, that's ambitious." Years later, 25 years later, I got to work with Molly Shannon myself, which is nice because I worked with Will Ferrell on Strike Back, and hopefully Will was going to be in this, but we wound up cutting the scenes that Will would have been in. This, of course, is a reference to, like, there's lots of references to the other movies. This is a reference to my real life. At one point, getting tossed off the Southwest Airlines flight. This sequence played like crazy in the audience, man, during the tour. When Silent Bob lost a bunch of weight, lady, aside from like laughing and shit like that at Vagina and whatnot, and this part, they loved the snack pack. I got applause just for going like vegan. Like when he was like, he's vegan now, and fucking the audience like, wah! Depending where you were in the country, it was like louder than others in terms of the vegan aspect of it. But everyone was happy about the reference. I was happy with the wordplay about weight problem. As an old wordsmith myself, that was the part of it for me that I kind of dug. So working with Molly, we worked at the actual airport in New Orleans. New Orleans was wonderful to us. The whole city, the crew base there is fantastic. Everyone who worked on this movie, top notch. The police who helped us like at the airport that night were so wonderful. Everybody, the extras, we had a bunch of people come out. You'll see them all later on. You see some of them here. You'll see more when we get to Chronicon later and stuff. Ride Me Now, the app, that came way late in the drafts, probably about midway through like draft 10. I was like, oh, let me include that. Since I was doing this like Southwest beat and whatnot. And then this whole thing about like credit card, it doesn't have a credit card, and like the boys overhearing and then stealing the credit card number. In this, there's the great Ralph Garman from Hollywood Babylon playing our character. From Fletch. I've smoked it away, but I'm probably going to see it on the screen. Someone teach a motherfucker a lesson. This happened not to me exactly. But I had used a phone card, Ted Underhill, that it is. There's his name. Fletch, shout out. I'd used my Sprint card back in like 1990 at a Garden State Parkway rest stop. And, I just punched it into the phone in those days. And so somebody watched me punch it in and then used my phone card and stuff. So ever since then, I've always been like super, that's a shout out to some shit that happened to me years ago. The great Fred Armisen, who I worked with, another SNLer. I worked with very briefly on Cop Out. This is the first time we'd gotten to work together since then. And he was lovely. All of this driving stuff, we shot in a parking lot with green screen behind us. So we're not fucking driving around. We're not being towed. We're literally just parked. The joints, the 3 strains of gold. Here's the second reference to them, which is a setup. We'll need them later on. Oh my God, that joint was made by Brandon, the props assistant kid, who was amazing. He read it in the script, and one day he brought it into me in my office. He goes, "Is this kind of it?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah, son. We get to smoke that shit. Smoke it like a dick." So it was, the scene proper was, pretty much just about, let me say, I'm trying to think. Him being like, you guys, this character, to be fair, Merkin, through various drafts of the movie, played a bigger role. At one point, he was like, in earlier drafts, he was like the what would you call him? In Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. He was kind of like Will and Holly. He was chasing the boys all throughout the movie and whatnot. The good thing about this flick, at least as the filmmaker, is that you can start storylines and drop them and move on as long as you had something else to present in the next minute that was even more surprising and stuff. So we didn't wind up needing Merkin for the whole movie. There was supposed to be like Fred returns at one point in the movie, but there was supposed to be another return at Chronicon at the very, very end. but we didn't wind up needing it. So it would have required Fred to stay another day, and he'd already been there in the rain. I didn't want to make him do it again. So I was like, hey, man, don't worry about it. We're good. But he was mostly ad-libbing this day and whatnot. He's got a line. I'm going to cut scenes real, like you see me laugh because we didn't include it in the movie, but I'm looking at the box of the tater tots, the hater tots with the lipstick on, and he goes like, "That's what they look like. That's what tween girls look like," and it made me laugh so fucking hard. Part of the reason I love making movies in general, particularly comedies, is you can be around funny people and get to laugh for free. Most people have to pay people to make them laugh and stuff, but when you're making a comedy, you're sitting down with like some insanely fucking funny people like Fred. It was just a joy to work with. He would just make me laugh constantly. Justin Long, same fucking way. Absolute joy to work with. And he does your script and then he ad libs 5 better, funnier scripts. Seth Rogen is the absolute same way. Days you go to work and I know I'm going to laugh so hard that I'm going to cry. They're so fucking funny. And people normally pay for that privilege. And instead, we pay, I guess we're paying too, because we're paying them as actors, but it's like feels like I'm getting a free show every fucking day. So working with Fred on this scene was an absolute fucking free show. And what was supposed to happen from here was a montage into driving. Steve Stark, who did the opening logo cartoon, he was going to do a driving app thing. But instead, late in the game, after we wrapped the movie, Matt Damon was like, hey, I'm free. And we'd been calling him the whole movie going like, hey man, like his agent going, is Matt around? Does he want to be in Strike Back? And like, we can't find him. He's off the grid. And we wrapped the movie and, we shot Ben. So we got one of them. And so we were like, that's cool. And we got back home and all of a sudden we got a call from his agent being like, Matt's free and he wants to be in the movie. And we were like, oh man, there's like nothing left or someone's going to have to tell Matt Damon no. But then, Jennifer was like, why don't you use him in that scene, man? Like, well, it wasn't quite that. I was going to have that driving montage cartoon. And then instead I was like, ooh, what if I had Matt come out and just say stuff to the camera? And she's like, why don't you ever think about using him as Loki? I was like, Loki from Dogma? Because he died. She's like, in a movie. I was like, you're fucking right. And I reached out to Matt and I was like, hey man, instead of playing Matt Damon, you want to play Loki from Dogma? He goes, oh, I'd love to. Can we still get the costume? I was like, it's a hoodie and a pair of fucking jeans, bro. And boom. So I wrote that monologue, reference Born Identity quite heavily, and use that to get us to Chicago. So instead of a little cartoon montage of the boys driving around in the Ride Me Now app, we got another Jay Silent Bob Strike Back alumnus, got to do the old Cheech and Chong / Fast Times at Ridgemont High. We open the door and smoke pours out. That's something I was very pleased about, ladies and gentlemen, with this movie. It's a true stoner's movie. When I made Jay Silent Bob Strike Back, I was not yet a stoner. When I made this movie, I've been dyed-in-the-wool stoner for like 10 years, ever since I started smoking weed with Seth Rogen on the last day of when we were done with Zach and Miri Make a Porno in the editing room. So I saw Be Real put up some kind of like a quiz thing. So who's the bigger stoner, Seth Rogen or Kevin Smith? I may smoke more weed than Seth. I don't know, but I got to give it to him. He's the one that led me down the path, man. He was my Qui-Gon Jinn, if you will. So this sequence right here, man, obviously not Chicago. We're in New Orleans, but we're back in a movies, ladies and gentlemen. So we had a movies in Dogma. We had a movies in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Movies, Clerks 2 was where movies were focused, where it was set. The membership card makes a return right there. And the nails lighter and stuff. All items from previous movies. Going back to movies was a big deal. And Nate and his team of artists kind of did like today's version of movies. So you'll see lots of repeating graphics and stuff like that. Dave Mandel, who we'll see outside in a second, drinking his coffee. He did that in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. As the boys get on the bus, Dave's sitting there with 2 coffees double fisting them and stuff. So he came back, did it for us in front of movies this time around. This is a fun little bit where, Fred gets caught with weed, although they're in Illinois, so probably wouldn't even matter anymore. Weed has gone legal. But the joke played very well. Audiences absolutely love this, and Fred was so funny. Dave Mandel, who's worked for SNL for years, he did Veep for the last few seasons. He was the one that said, bring him up to the window and pound, and they just don't, hear him and stuff. Kate Micucci. Oh, I love Kate, man. She was amazing. She came in and rocked it with it. Welcome to the movies. What are you in the mood for? I remember like she was having such a hard time with the knife, and she was like, I'm ruining the scene. I was like, oh my God, you made the scene with that movie shit. You can fuck with the knife all you want and stuff. This was a fun little bit for me because I get to play with the veganism thing again. And the movies are always a snapshot of where I'm in my life at that point when I made them. And so I'm totally vegan after my heart attack, man. I went vegan. Used to be happy, now I'm fucking vegan and stuff. So there are a bunch of vegan jokes in the movie. And this little sequence here allowed Silent Bob to have his first on-screen kiss. And that's, of course, with his real life wife. Right here, I'm doing a fucking emoji bit again, but it backfires in Silent Bob's face. And Kate made this work. I'm a big fan of my silent scream right here. But Kate calls in. There she is. There she is. My girlfriend, ladies and gentlemen. That's the mother of my child. Jennifer, who is in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, as well, returns. And she's playing Missy McKenzie. So the backstory is that's Colleen McKenzie's mom, the one we met at what are they called again? The Gimli Slider up in Tusk and Yoga Hosers. There, me and Jen go in the bathroom and make out for a little bathroom bam bam. And meanwhile, this is the moment where Jay, just like in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, he found justice in movies. He's gonna and fantasized about her. He's gonna do the same thing here, obviously. Brian O'Halloran playing another of his characters, because Brian played so many characters, so many Hickses in all the movies. Dante in the beginning. I think this one would be Gil Hicks. No, that's not Gil, because he would be from Mallrats. That would be the one who did the news in Dogma, the co-anchor and stuff. And so here we shot all on a green screen. The good folks at Encore put all those eggplants and weed things there later on, the peach and whatnot. Jay gets pegged in 2020 version of Jay. I mean, even the old version of Jay probably would have liked pegging. You saw Andy McElfresh there, who I do education with. He was our short order fry cook with Brian peeking over the desk. And then, we jump out of the fantasy and come back into this sequence right here, man. There's DK, who helps us sell ads. And right next to him, man, that's Andy's daughter, Daisy, a little bit. She's in my Kilroy Was Here movie. This point in the flick, man, is when we kind of kick in with the real flick. Up till now, it's just been us kind of aping Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. But this is where, we see, justice. And Jay's like, my long lost ex-girlfriend, boo-boo kitty fuck. So, we're going to take a side stop on our way to Hollywood, and that's going to change everything. Every night, audiences applaud when me and my wife made out. And they always applauded at that joke where she's like, I just had some vegan. Or I just ate some vegan. There's Dave Mandel, double fist in the coffees. This sequence here, right here, where Jay's like, write this shit down. Obviously, shout out Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back when we were typing on the big movies internet terminal. You don't need that anymore. You can do it right on your phone. So type, oh, you motherfucker, you're going to pay. You are the one who is the hater, Todd. Anytime we did stuff like that, like in the screenings, and I went to every damn screening, 65,000 people just not at once, obviously, but spread out over the tour, would go crazy. It was so lovely, man. It was like being a musician and playing a certain chord, and everybody's like, I know what song's next. It was great. We picked a very John Hughesian looking house. I wrote that in the script, a very John Hughesian affair. And there she is, ladies and gentlemen, returning, the great Shannon Elizabeth. Let me tell you something. When we made this movie, she looks like we put her in a box, which sounds like fucking not as nefarious as I mean it, but preserved her and then took her out for this movie. She looks the exact same. Shannon and Jay, there's Harley's introduction in the movie. That's the first time we see Millie. And that was her favorite thing to do, was choke me, her father. It was only supposed to happen once, but we kept doing it again. We let her choke everybody. She's supposed to be whacking people out with hockey sticks the whole movie, but she was like, I did that in Yoga Hosers. And the stunt coordinator taught her how to choke me out. And she was like, I want to do that for everybody. So it became a running gag and stuff. When Jay, I put up a picture of Instagram of Jay and Shannon together going, hey, look who's back, the day we shot Shannon. Holy shit. My Instagram blew up. Everyone loved that photo and they were like, oh, this is one of my favorite romances. And I was like, what? That was a romance? Like, what are you, like, really? But I was so happy that they were happy to see her and stuff because we were happy to see her and she crushes it. And she's the gateway to the rest of the movie, man. Like, without her, we can't say that. I mean, I guess you could have, but it's fun to be like, hey, she, who Jay, had sex with many years ago, had a kid, and that kid is Jay's long lost daughter. I owe this entire fucking like, hey, I got a kid to, well, nature. And that's what happens in nature. But Jay and Silent Bob were in Canada, of course, for Degrassi. And so Degrassi, The Next Generation, was literally just kind of like, hey, Spike had a baby all those years ago, so that baby would be age appropriate right now to go to high school. So same thing here. It's like Jay and Justice, I mean, that movie was 18 years ago, so that means they would possibly have a kid. And so that opened up the door for me to include my kid. I love this scene. I love this whole movie, don't get me wrong, but like every night, this is where the movie really kicks in for me. Because it's funny, don't get me wrong, but like this is where you get to see Jay act. And then of course, I get to see my kid. My third lead came out of my balls, ladies and gentlemen. That's very, it's a rare thing to say as a director. So I was proud of her because she crushed it and stuff like that. Another emoji gag. So, and Jay particularly crushed it, man. He gets to do stuff in this movie he's never done before, dramatically speaking. So I love, this is where the movie kicks in, and the score that Jim Venable did for this movie. I loved Jim's score for Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and when I brought him onto this, I was like, when I did the edit of the movie, I temp the movie. That's where you put a temp score in there. I temped it. I just got to make sure we're still recording. We are. I temped it with Jim's Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back score. So, when I handed him the movie, he was like so flattered because he's like, oh my God, you used all my music. I was like, I love that score, man. It's going to be tough to ever beat that score. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, one of my favorite scores. Dun, 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 dun. And then this one, the theme, we couldn't use that one because we would have had to buy that score. So Jim was like, I can grow. The score can grow up and the boys can sound a little different. And so the main theme is dun, 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 dun. But in this sequence, he plays this piano cue, which he gave a different name to. But I always called I Do Know This. Whenever we talk about like his daughter or whatever, it goes into the piano. Oh, breaks my heart. Thank God I got the volume down because it would make me cry, particularly in the later scenes and stuff. This is a little inside joke, of course, where, Jay's like, what are you telling me for? He's the one with the big mouth, because I do have a very big fucking mouth. It's always flapping, as you can hear right here, man. This was like the scene that they would show on, like when we went on the Colbert Show, me and Jay, or when I went on Seth Meyers. This is probably the most TV safe. And there's Trishelle enters the movie, man. Trishelle plays Soapy. And her and Harley became real good friends and whatnot. Harley learned sign language for the movie ASL, American Sign Language. And so they could communicate all through the flick. Trishelle is wonderful. I love her to death because she's a wonderful actress, but she's playing a version of Silent Bob in the movie. So her and I, throughout the whole movie, were kind of like mirrors and bonded over the fact that like our acting is not about words, but being very expressive with our faces and hands. So it added an interesting element to shooting that I'd never done, I had to deal with before, or never worked with before, was we had an ASL translator on set every day that Trishelle was on set. So I would communicate the scene, and then I would communicate the scene to Trishelle's translator, and she would communicate the scene in ASL back to Trishelle. So it was an added step than I've ever had to deal with before, but it was totally fine, easy, and wonderful to watch. And it always right outside to the side of the camera, her translator was always there working and stuff. That's what I remember. One of the things I remember most about the movie, because I'd never had that on another movie set before. Here is one of my favorite jokes in the flick, man, where Silent Bob reveals Jay reveals his one favorite movie, And Silent Bob says it's second favorite movie is The Shape of Water, and he does this and blah blah blah. Looking at her trophies, look how impressed we are. Quick shot. I remember I was like, "Hey man, just pan the fucking trophies and shit. I'm gonna use a quick cutaway." Um, I like the yo meth heads, and we just turn around. All of this, I thought they played very well together, Harley and Shannon, as mother and daughter. But it's a trip for me, you know. Naturally, Harley is playing Jay's daughter in the movie, but she's my daughter. So you know, for the whole movie, like my daughter's in every damn scene, or I'm in this every damn scene with my daughter as she plays Jay's daughter. It was very meta affair as I was writing it, as we were shooting it, and stuff like that. And I was so happy for the kid. She started studying Stella Adler. You know, she wound up being in Quentin's movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She auditioned and got that and stuff. So by the time she came to my set, man, she was, you know, much stronger actress than the one that I'd worked with on Yoga Hosers. Not to say like she was bad. She was a kid back then. But I was so happy for her. The great Rosario Dawson returning, ladies and gentlemen. Not playing Becky, playing Reggie. Some people in the theaters were like, hey man, how come she didn't reference fucking Clerks 2? I'm like, well, because she's not playing her character from Clerks 2. Whenever Rosario, now the live action Ahsoka from the next Mandalorian season 2, how amazing is that? And that's something she really wanted. She came to us, she was shooting Zombieland 2, and they weren't going to let her leave a set, but she broke away for half a day to come shoot with us, man, because they were in Atlanta and we were in New Orleans. So she wasn't shooting, but she was on hold, but she was like, I'm coming anyway, and came out and did this half day for us, man. Whenever she walked on screen, audience went absolutely nuts. It was thunderous. No matter where you were in the building, if you were in the backstage area going to the bathroom, look, watch Rosario put her thumb up for like thumb dick at Jay right here. So like I would say 25% of the people when they saw it live saw that. Most people looking at Shannon as she speaks, some people looking up and they see Rosario go like this, and there would always be this little wave of laughter and stuff. And so not obviously Chicago. This is a street in New Orleans. And having Jay have a daughter is an idea that I stole from Jay in real life. He has a daughter. He's got Logan and has had her for, well, she's coming up on 5 years old, man. She'll be 5 years old on April 1st. So, you know, Jay is always the guy least fucking likely, the guy you made fun of, Captain Irresponsibility and shit like that. And he turned out to be the world's greatest fucking dad. No lie. Hands down, Jason Mewes is the best father I've ever seen in my life. I include myself as a dad in that equation. I include my own father as a dad in that equation. I include the Lord our God in that equation is because he was also a dad. But if you read that book, you know, he was pretty shitty to his son. So maybe we don't include him enough. But Jay is an amazing dad, man. Like him and his kid relate to one another. Like they're best friends. Like every kid thinks their parent hung the moon, but like we all love Jay, man. We've been watching the movies 25 years. Imagine if you had that 365, 24/7, just for you, a one-man fucking show, and he's already working in kids' material like Snoochie Boochies and shit. Oh, Logan adores him, man, and he adores her right back. And it's adorable because like she's 4.5 and he's 45, and they meet at the exact same maturity level. But their relationship inspired the movie. I was like, if Jay, go figure, you, the guy least likely, man, a guy we wouldn't fucking trust with a carton of fucking eggs, let alone another human being. If you're such a great dad, what would your character be like, man? And so, boom, that's kind of where the whole middle act or where the meat of this movie came from, was inspired by Jay Mewes being a dad. And Harley playing his daughter was inspired by the Instagram audience because for years I'd put up a picture of me and Harley together on Instagram. And, you know, there's always a couple wiseacres who are like, I don't know, bro. You know, look at that blonde hair, man. She looks a lot more like Jay than Silent Bob. You might want to talk to your wife. So years later, I was like, fuck you, I'm stealing your joke and making it a center point of my movie and stuff. So I love this scene. Once again, we didn't drive around. We were just on a green screen and whatnot. We were in the same building. We shot the Blunt Cave. We parked the car and did our thing, man. Put up some damn green screen. Ron, who is our DP, this movie looks amazing, and it's all because of because of Ron. He did such an amazing job. He worked faster than me, and I work fast because I don't give a fuck about what things look like and stuff. I just want to get the jokes captured. but Ron was able to make the movie look really good. I remember as I was putting it together, I was like, this don't look like Strike Back, man. This is dark. And like, he's like, well, you made that movie like fucking 20 years ago with all the lights on. He's like, cinema's a little different now. So he went out of his way and made a fucking beautiful goddamn movie for us, man. This, we were just sitting inside, and this is all green screen, the background and whatnot. And I love this sequence because there's me and my kid and him. I mean, there's a lot of sequences in the movie like that. Eric Carrasco is the guy driving the cab, the Ride Me Now car, if you will. Punch edibles, they're actually real. When he goes, there's weed in that chocolate. Holy shit, she poisoned us. You're gonna see Eric. Look at he's acting. Eric wrote two of my Supergirl episodes. He wrote Masters of the Universe, Netflix show with me and stuff. One of my favorite writers. And he came up and visited. And I said, get the fuck in there, man. Put him in there. If you visit a Kevin Smith movie, you will wind up in the flick. Harley was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back as a little baby. Like she played baby Silent Bob. So Harley just proves if you stick around long enough, you'll go from an extra in a Kevin Smith movie to the third lead. Okay, man. Hey, there they are. It's Method and Red coming up, man. Well, you hear them. There they are, Method and Red. We got so lucky that the boys were willing to make a trip down to New Orleans and play with us. Method had come and done an episode of Comic Book Men, a couple seasons back. So I had an in with him. I also know Red, who does his makeup and stuff, and did on the show Pass the Mic, Drop the Mic, that I had done, Jensen's show. So, I met him and we played around one day when we were doing that show. So then I reached out. I was like, hey, man, originally I'd written a scene where all the cinematic stoners got together. So it's Method and Red, it's Harold and Kumar, Seth and Franco from Pineapple Express, Bill and Ted, Cheech and Chong, but couldn't pull it off. So, instead, this became the sequence. And it's kind of, I watched it every fucking night and the audience went nuts. The audience was disappointed when the rest of the movie wasn't Method and Red or How High 2. I told Method, man, I was like, if you have any brains whatsoever, you will make How High 2. Based on what I saw on the road, they will show the fuck up, my friend. Make How High 2. Red was absolutely hysterical. And their dynamic while shooting, very similar to me and Jay. It was adorable. This was a tough night because we had like 6-7 things to do in this day. Originally, we were going to shoot this sequence on a basketball court. But then at the last minute, I was like, let's do it in a car. Method and Red meet in a car in How High. So let's just call that back, man. So Ron set this up and we shot 2 different days. Me and Jay are on a sound stage. Method and Red are in a parking lot in the same place where we did Chronicon. This shot belongs to Ron, man. He was like, please let me do this shot. And I was like, oh, I don't know. He goes, we'll pull his pants down. I was like, I'm all right. And it was one of the greatest shots for the live screenings of the movie because as it came up on, the camera came up on his ass. Sounds dirtier than I meant it. The audience went nuts. They were like, Wah! And I'd shoot that every night and send it to Ron and be like, this is your joke. You're getting this laugh right here. Aparna joins the show, man. Aparna Brielle playing Jihad. And then there's Alice. Alice Wen playing Shen Yu for us. Now our girl gang is together. Just like in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, we've got 4, girls on the road who aren't quite being honest about what they're on the road for. However, the girls of 2001 and the girls of 2019/2020, the women, if you will, are much different. So we get to play with a bunch of themes. This is where we make a lot of, jokes about dragging Jay and Silent Bob from the 90s into the present. A lot of fish out of water, like, is this what the world's like now? Obviously they were baffled by fucking ride shares and shit. So the idea of multicultural influence, they come from a pretty lily white world, as we've seen in most of those VSQ movies. I got to play with that here, where it's like, it's a much bigger and different world. And this one looks kind of closer to the real world than the first one did. But in any event, we get a girl group hanging out together, man. just like we did in the other movie. Jay's got a special relationship with one in the girl group and stuff. And of course, that would be Millie, Millennium Falcon, if you will, Falcon. So, and all that was missing at that point was, the van, which we're going to add in a couple seconds. The van's going to show up. This podcast stuff has been around for a long time. It was in the earliest drafts of the script. At one point, Shen Yu was a handler of a kid who Teddy, his name was going to be, who at the end of the movie would have turned out to be a robot the whole time. It was early draft. You got to remember, I'm a stoner. Instead, I came to the eventual. Oh, Shan Yu is there. She's a spy. She's not who she represents herself to be. The van is kind of looks like the van from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. That was the intention. I actually asked them. I said, "Can you get something fucking close to this?" And that van is a reference, two references, man. One to like me and my family went on a van vacation cross country once when I was like 5 years old. But also it's from the Bad News, but not the same van, but the Bad News Bears and Breaking Training. The Bears steal a van and they go drive across country to Houston to play in the Little League World Series at the Houston Astrodome. And so that's where, I realized, oh my God, this movie's got a lot of Bad News Bears in it, as far as I'm concerned. And not for the obvious places. It's more subtle. It's more about, Jay and Millie kind of function like Buttermaker and Amanda, an adult and a kid in this relationship that are, not in a relationship that's like, hey, old man, you don't know anything. Hey, kid, you don't know anything. That kind of thing. They're doing it in movies for years and stuff. But it very much so reminded me, like as I was watching the movie, as I was making it, here, blueprints are back, man. A little reference to Jay and Silent Bob's past. It's in the DNA from the kid passed on, from the dad passed on to the kid. So there's Buddy Christ on the dashboard. There's a much longer sequence. We saw right there when they jumped in, and I totally missed the sequence where the guy was wearing the mask and stuff like that. Much at one point, like it went on. You see in the end credits that Mickey played that character. You see in the end credits that it was cut out that he was not a pedophile and stuff. But when I cut the movie together, I'm like, oh, it works better if he is a pedophile. And Jay beats him up, and they take the van and stuff. This moment here, little quiet moment, allows you to show. Look at Harley's nodding at him when Jay's like been confronted with like fucking something he'd never heard before, honor killing and stuff like that. He reacts the only way he knows how and stuff, and Harley can kind of, Millie's character, you see she's kind of agreeing with him and stuff. Building a relationship. The scene is necessary because you get to see the connection between father and daughter start to build, even though they don't know that they're father and daughter. Harley hated shooting this scene because she talked about fucking Chris Hemsworth right while I was sitting there on set, and she was just like, "That's mortifying, Dad." I'm like, "It's all for fucking fake." If you listen, the guy, the voice box, welcome to Movies by the Moonlight. That's Stephen Root. He came in at the last minute, did a bunch of voiceover. He does all the voices of the cockmandos later on. We don't see him because he wasn't there when we shot it, but you'll hear him later on too. I love this scene right here. This is, no matter where I was during the screenings on the road, I would be sure to shoot this because I loved the silence of the scene. People reacting, watching the scene. I loved watching Jay get emotional. I love watching the people watch Jay get emotional. I think Harley kills it in the scene. So every night it was real fun to watch and real gratifying as well. And it was a little nerve wracking because like it's a park and bark. We're in a drive through at a movies, our second movies, and we're just gonna sit around and talk for a minute and a few minutes. So I was always like, oh, I hope the audience goes for this. I hope this isn't where they get up and go get a drink or something like that. But it played. It really played, and I was always so happy. I was always so happy for Harley, man. As a dad, I was just proud. But as a director, I was like, fucking hey, man, well done. So it was nice to watch every night people kind of go for the story as weird as it is to say, there is, a love story at the center of the movie. And it's the story that the love the parent feels for a kid, the love that a kid feels for a parent and stuff. So, that's where I am in life. I got a kid, that one right there in the movie. Well, not him, not her. I love that fucking Silent Bob so shitty when he's like, no, it's not a reboot. This line right here, this line right here, I could not fucking believe destroyed every night, man, when he was just like an added youth and diversity to it. I always thought it was like clever. I was like, oh, that's one of my favorite lines in the movie because it's some clever writing that's set up earlier in the movie and we pay it off here. But I was always so delighted. The audience, like, it was as soon as he was like youth and diversity to it. And then he goes into the next line. The audience would pick it up and get it and like, ah! And it was always a big applause moment. I loved that to death, man. That was one of my favorite things watching. One of my favorite parts of the evening watching the movie with the audience was that. Because it made me feel like, oh, I'm a smart writer. I could have been a smart writer if I really tried. So I like whenever he refers to me as Mr. Taint. Mr. Taint. I'm like, yes, I am Mr. Taint. Jason Mewes in this movie, I've always loved Jason Mewes. He's always my rocket sauce, my secret weapon. I wouldn't be anywhere in life without him, man. Like, there'd be no Jay and Silent Bob. We wouldn't be making these movies if I'd never met Jay. And he is so wonderful in this movie. He has moments that make me fucking laugh out loud and cry, even though laughing, even though I've seen the movie many, many times. I was there when we made it and I wrote the fucking lines and stuff. And then he has moments that like grab me in the fucking heart, man. This moment here, right here, is one of my favorite in the flick. What is it? It's glassy-eyed time. And, kid, she's kind of into, like, she can make herself cry real easy and stuff as an actress and whatnot. But Jay getting emotional, that's like, I couldn't count on that and shit like that. That was new. And that line right there, no, you didn't, always fucking destroy it every night. It was so awesome. Here he's coming up right here. He gets kind of glassy-eyed. And he looks to Silent Bob at one point, and Silent Bob can't help him. I remember in the edit, I was like, that's the story there. When he looks to Silent Bob, it's not there, it just happened before. And Silent Bob kind of looked away, and Jay was like by himself. Look at this, man. Like, he fucking crushes this. Some people were like, this is some fucking woke bullshit. Some cats got mad. But I don't give a fuck. Jay fucking crushed that moment, man. And also, this movie has woke things in it, and it also has jokes about woke things in it. We try to have our cake and eat it too, man. The whole movie is about, look at these guys being dragged from the 90s into the fucking present day. And Fred returns. We shot this on such a fucking rainy night. You can't tell, but it's raining. It wasn't as raining as hard at that particular moment. We ran outside and fucking shot this. But if you look at the puddles behind us on the ground, you'll see some fucking water hitting those puddles. Same movies that we pulled up to in Chicago. We just used the other side of it. We didn't go to a completely different set and make a whole new movie. It's the same fucking building. Fred is strapped to the roof of the car. I remember he had a harness on him and stuff like that. And he killed it. His whole hater tots, Harley's choking him out again, just like she choked Silent Bob, and then she'll choke Kevin Smith coming up. His hater tots filled with, hey, like that was him. I remember when he did it, I laughed out loud. You could hear me in the background in the raw footage, fucking laughing and cackling at that fucking line. Hey, this line always got a big laugh when we were at the screenings and whatnot. The audience go nuts. I love Jay's delivery. Ditch old gay guys. What the fuck? His delivery is perfect. That's a kid who has spent 25 years perfecting a character, man. And he just, chef's kiss. That delivery just rolled off his tongue so well. You never really see Silent Bob drive. I think that may be a cinematic first. You saw Jay driving in Dogma when we were doing this shit, and then he's like, gear. Obviously, Jay and Silent Bob have learned to drive since that movie. That is a little reference to, double reference. When we open the door, Jay and Silent Bob are in his house in Strike Back, which we called back when we go to Justice's house. But that's also us doing this shit is when we turned around with the monkey huddle and stuff in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Okay. I remember the Klan sequence. Like, you got to remember, I grew up in the '80s, so all the road movies I watched had like a Klan scene and stuff like that, and they always get their comeuppance. My kid did not grow up watching those movies. Chris Jericho, ladies and gentlemen. So when she read this in the script, she's like, "Dad, you can't include that. Like, the Klan is a hate group." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. That's why we do what we do to them in the movie and stuff." And she's going, "No, you can't even put them in a movie. People like that would really make people upset." And I was like, like, I mean, I think like it's a comedy and everybody understands, like, we're certainly not on the side of the fucking Klan and stuff. And her and my wife, Jennifer, was like, "I don't know. You might want to cut that, man." And at one point, I cut this entire sequence out of the movie, and the movie was shorter. And then I was like, hey, the journey feels too short. This always played incredibly well. Not only is Chris Jericho amazing in the movie, but Silent Bob's got his whole Glengarry Glen Ross speech here, man. This is one of my favorite moments in the movie when we did our public screenings because, whenever somebody from one of the other flicks or somebody that people recognize showed up, people would fucking applaud and shit like that. So when Jericho lifts up, his hood and we see that it's Chris Jericho, the audience would be like, "Wow!" And then they'd be like, "Wait, I'm applauding Klansman." They'd be like, "Oh, well, fucking, I like Chris, but no, I don't." It was really, they were confused reactions. It was pretty funny. This is lifted right from Glengarry Glen Ross, one of my favorite movies of all time, the Alec Baldwin monologue. When I started making movies in the '90s, you could reference movie dialogue and all day long and shit. We'd lift up lines wholesale from other movies and shit like that. Now, in this day and age, it was interesting. I learned that like we couldn't do this without New Line saying yes, Warner Brothers and owns New Line, saying that we could do the dialogue in the movie because it's dialogue they own. David Mamet had to sign off on it too, apparently, and give us permission to use the dialogue, which makes sense, I guess, at the end of the day. But when I started my career, fuck you, that's my name. If people didn't get where the scene was coming from until that moment, that's when they were like, "Oh, it's Glengarry Glen Ross." But every night of the tour, before I went out there, I would set it up a little bit and kind of make this Glengarry Glen Ross comment because I knew I didn't set it up well enough in the movie and shit. So I dig this. That looked like such an '80s movie with all those Klansmen turning at once. And I love this. Hold on. I dig the fact that I was like, "Kill these racist fucks." And Jay's like, "I got something better. We're gonna dump shit all over him and stuff." That is now who's stupid, you dirty. It says sheep fucker in the line, the commentary, what is it called? Where they put the words on the bottom of the screen. But it was sheet fucker. There's Liv, who's our tour manager, and Shecky. And that's my walk. I always walk up there. There's the Scum and Villainy Cantina, JC walking right in front of it with his wife, Jen. There's the Improv, where me and Ralph do Babylon all the time. That's my Los Angeles. You know how they always go to Hollywood and they show you, like, there's the sign and there's the fucking this and this. This is my Hollywood. But I always love this. Here's his music. There's that piano music a little bit that Jim Venable crushed. I love this shot because in the movie, watching it with the audience, it would make me well up because that's how I feel every day of my life, that I wake up in Hollywood. This is where I live. And I go walk in and I see that sign and I'm like, holy shit, we made it. So when that happened in the movie, when it happened every night that I watched it, I felt it right here. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is really just a dirty version of the Muppet movie. And in the Muppet movie, they were just trying to get to Hollywood. Same fucking thing. So this comes from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So at its DNA, in its core, its creative DNA, this is the Muppet movie. And they're just a bunch of fucking puppets just trying to get to Hollywood for whatever reason, because they have the dream. Or the rainbow connection, if you will. Love this little scene between the kid and Jay. It's quiet. They crushed it when we shot. And it was a nice little respite when we were theatrical, because you're coming off of, the Klan scene, and then we're about to go into Chronicon and stuff. So this is like the quiet moment scene, and was the only reference to Alanis Morissette as God in the movie. And then we shot Matt after the movie was done, and then he references Alanis Morissette as God earlier in the flick and stuff. So it undercut this moment a little bit, but it was kind of worth it. As the storyteller, I feel it was worth it. All these fine people are fans and came down with their own costumes. and varied them. See the big balloons? Those aren't balloons. Those are the real Funko Pops designs that Funko did for the Blunt Man and Chronic Pops. And I said, can I blow those up and make them like they're giant floaty balloons, parade balloons? They're like, all right. It's a dream come true, ladies and gentlemen. Look at all that. It's a sea of me. As a guy who's a big fan of fucking Kevin Smith, the filmmaker and the person, like, could you imagine how delighted I was to walk around a room where everyone was, well, half of the entire crowd was dressed like me. This is like my being John Malkovich, like Malkovich. Originally, it was not meant to be Chronicon. And apologies to the great Doug Benson, who had done a documentary called Chronicon. But ours is a reference, of course, to Blunt Man and Chronic. So originally it wasn't Chronicon. It was San Diego Comic-Con. And then I realized I can't fucking show Spider-Man, Batman, all that IP. I can't have people walking around like that, like without permission and stuff. So I was like, oh, fuck, what's the point? Because then it's like, well, that's a vampire and that's a robot and everybody's just like that. But then I was like, wait a second, I do own Jay and Silent Bob. So everyone at the con, if it's a con that's about Jay and Silent Bob, and for the longest time it was Blunt Con, many drafts. And then one day I was like, Chronicon. And I didn't want to use it because Doug had made a movie and I didn't want it to seem like I was stealing, but I was like, come on, man, it just makes more sense than Blunt Con. So Chronicon became... Adam Brody, who I absolutely adore, man, was with me in Cop Out, was with me, and there's that T-shirt. Always got a huge fucking laugh. Captain Ribman did that T-shirt as well. Harley is wearing Jay's shirt from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and she didn't want to wear that outfit, and she was like, oh, do I have to? And I was like, yes. The idea in the whole third act of the movie is you're dressed like Jay was, and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, like father, like daughter, and little shit like that. Oh, look at that. There's the biggest special effect we got in the movie, and not because it's a hologram. Chris fucking Hemsworth is in the movie, man. Thor himself. How the fuck did that happen? Believe me, I'm still trying to figure it out. Chris had said something he'd referenced me in a Vanity Fair article about Thor Ragnarok, and he said, like, Kevin Smith said something about it on his podcast, and I was like, Thor knows my name, the god of fucking thunder? So, a year later, whenever it was, 2 years later, we were getting ready to make this movie. We were putting together a cast list. I said, somebody reach out to Chris Hemsworth. He said my name that one time. And this is a beautiful story about symmetry or in life or whatever. His manager or his agent, one of them was like, the only reason I'm in this business is because years ago I saw a movie called Clerks. Let's make this happen. And made it happen, man. Chris, we were in post. We shot him on a green screen and stuff. But he came out and he was doing so many things. He was going to be on Ellen that day. It was the same day all the Avengers were on Ellen. And then they were going to fly to England for the opening of the movie. I think they were on Kimmel as well. So it was a busy day, and he made time to come and hang with us. It was really lovely. Yet another cool cameo. There's Cat Ears right behind Jay in the background. She goes to all our shows at Scum and Villainy Cantina, where we do Fat Man Beyond. The good folks at Raw, amongst many people who brought their shit to make our Chronicon look fucking authentic and big. It is... it's a ballroom at a hotel in New Orleans that we turned into our own little con with a bunch of fucking people dressed like Kevin Smith knockoffs, man. Oh heavens. So there's this scene again. If you're into the comedy of this movie, you're like, oh man, they're gonna get serious again. I could hear it in the piano. I fucking love this scene. This is one of my favorite things I've ever filmed in my entire life. I think Jay's wonderful in it. Harley's wonderful in it. Jay's performance is right there. No, wait a minute. Like, it's just soft. It's real. He's not like fucking, big and over the top and stuff. It's pretty emotional stuff. And the day that like we shot this, it didn't say in the script, Jay rolls a tear or gets glassy eyed. It said, Millie did, but Jay, I did not say that about, because I might as well have written Jay pulls out a 20-foot cock. Some shit just because you write it in a script ain't gonna fucking ever happen. So I didn't write Jay gets emotional, but he did, because the kid was crying. She could turn on the tears in a movie at the drop of a fucking hat and stuff. So she would do that, and Jay, she's off camera, and we're on Jay, and Harley's crying off camera. She's giving a full performance that she gives on camera, and so Jay would get emotional and stuff, and so that's how he gets all glassy eyed, because he's looking at Harley, and he saw Harley like getting emotional, and that made him sad. So he was able to kind of do this moment, man. Like, And I've only seen Jay cry like 3 times in my life. That's what it looks like. And this is what it feels like. Oh, he fucking nailed it, man. I know some people are like, fuck your movie. It fucking blows and it's stupid and you suck and you always have. And you're going to not have a job soon. One day they'll realize, they've been telling me this shit for 25 years. I don't give a fuck. This is one of my favorite fucking things I've ever put on film. Jay crushed it, man. Crushed it, as did Harley in the scene. It's so damn wonderful. And so in the movie, like it was always like it went from that kind of sad note to as soon as they saw Diedrich Bader's ass, as soon as we went up and they heard whoa, 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 they knew it was him, man. Before he spoke, the audience went nuts. They were like, wow, and applause, and fucking like thunderous applause and shit. My only regret, I love Diedrich, man, and he gets a reference into his Batman Brave and Bold when he talks about the hammers of justice. My only regret is, and look, he don't fucking age either. He looks almost the exact same. My only regret is that I didn't have him say, "Oh, what a lovely tea party." I wish I'd had him say it. I could have put it in the credits and shit, but we were rushing so fast. We shot this in the same hallway where Ralph's airport is right to the right of that and stuff. So, in movie sets, you use a lot of things that are close to one another. So if we just pan a little bit more to the right, you would see the elevators that are right there. Keith Coogan showed up on our fucking picture, ladies and gentlemen. The dishes are done, man. The fishes are done, man. It was a reference to, of course, the movie did Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, which we talked about in Smodcast, me and Mosier, years ago and stuff. So I was so delighted to make those references and get Keith Coogan to show up. Look at that, a hallway of me, a sea of me. And then we get into the fun of running around the con type stuff, which emulates running around the movie studio. There's my mom. I'm in back of my mom right there, and that's my brother right next to me, who's just like Jay. Biggs and Vanderbeek, man. Jason Biggs, one of the first persons that signed on to this movie. I love him to death. And Quinn, Brian Quinn, from Impractical Jokers, who used to work for me years ago. I'm pointing at him like he's on the screen. There's me and my mom. I'm going to act with her in a minute, man. All the time on the movie, I'd always be, there's Quinn. I'd always be like, anytime we did something, I was like, this is why we fucking made the movie and shit like that. That day when I was, that right there, I give my thumbs up to my mom. She gives me a thumbs up. I remember that day going, this is why I shot the movie. My 73-year-old mother and me are on camera together. She was the lady who was looking for milk at the end of Clerks, or in Clerks, she was the milkmaid. At the end of Clerks 2, she's looking for milk. So I was delighted to have her there. So for people like, fuck your movie, I'm like, yeah, but my mom's in it, so fuck you. There's my brother Don, who taught me things that were funny. So if you don't like my sense of humor, blame that fucking dude, Don. Diedrich chasing us through right into the Comic Book Man reunion panel. This is was a longer scene, and I put the rest of it up on Instagram. If you go to my Instagram account, that Kevin Smith, you could see it, more of it. But my boys, Brian and Walt, were in there, and Mike and Ming. This was a bit that built slowly. It was supposed to be originally like we run into two girls, like the Shining girls, who are dressed like Jay and Silent Bob. And they're like, come play with us. And then I was like, can we do them in black and white? And then I was like, fuck those two little girls. Let's make it me and Jay in a Clerk scene. And it's one of the biggest moments of the movie. People applauded. This, also one of the biggest moments of the movie, man. I love Silent Bob's reaction to it, which I acted out, when he goes, because that is exactly how I felt when this happened. This shouldn't have fucking happened. I did not write this scene when I wrote this movie. I never thought I'd ever talk to Ben Affleck again in my life, ladies and gentlemen. I hadn't spoken to him in close to 10 years when this all happened. But I've told the story many times. Kevin McCarthy, who reviews movies for Fox out of Washington and stuff, when he interviews people for junkets that have been in movies that I've made, even if they're in other movies, he'll do a reference to the View Askew movies. And like case in point, he'll be interviewing Matt for Elysium and be like, hey man, like when are you guys going to do Good Will Hunting 2 hunting season? And Matt will be like, what the fuck? And then be like, oh, I was in that movie years ago. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And it's a nice icebreaker and stuff. He did it for Ben while we were in production. And he was like, hey man, they're making Jay and Silent Bob Reboot right now. You're going to be in it? And Ben, like without missing a beat, was like, no, nobody called me and I'm not busy. Joey's in the movie, man. This always got a huge thunderous applause too. So when Ben said that stuff on Twitter, everyone on production was like, did you see this? Did you see Ben talking to you? You got to reach out to him and be in the movie. I was like, that's just some nice shit to say on Twitter. He's doing a junket for a movie on Netflix, Triple Frontier. What is he supposed to do? Be like, fuck Kevin Smith. By the way, watch Triple Frontier on Netflix. Like, no, he's just sales mode. Don't you think about that. And then like a week later, Jay just came up to me and he goes, I was thinking about it, bro. I think Ben's sending you a coded message. And I was like, you know what? I will reach out to him and see if he says, yeah. I tweeted him. I was about to tweet him, but then instead, Jason's wife, Jordan, was like, don't fucking tweet him, text him. And I found a number, I tried it, and suddenly we were having a conversation, and suddenly Ben was like, I'll come be in the movie. And I got to write this scene, which is like, Kevin Smith fan fiction, man, where it's just like, oh my God, Holden and Alyssa had a baby. See, that's my sister, Virginia. So my whole family's in the movie. So my daddy's dead. Virginia was sitting next to Joey at the end of Chasing Amy, man. Remember, she's the one that's like, who's that? She's like, oh, that's some guy I knew. So putting my sister in the scene allowed me to kind of reframe Chasing Amy like as a love story that only kicks in the last 2 minutes of the movie, because really that's the couple that's still together, is Virginia and Joey and stuff. But obviously her and Holden still have a tight connection. And what I love about this scene is Holden grows up. The guy who we met in Chasing Amy never could have been in the relationship he's in now. Father of a child with somebody who he's not married to, who's married to somebody else, and blah, blah, blah. But there he is, man. Everybody grows. At the end of Chasing Amy, you get the idea when he shows up at the comic, you're like, maybe one day Holden will get a grip and shit, and he does. There, probably the little kid without whom there is no movie, man. That's Logan Lee Muse right there. And Logan, and being in our lives, being in Jay's life particularly, hence in our lives, kicked this movie into gear in terms of me going, Jay is a dad. Jay's a good dad. Go fucking figure. And her name being named Amy, come on. When I wrote that scene, man, I was like, oh my God, like what the fuck? Like I'm so clever. And I went up to everyone on set and I was like, if Holden and Alyssa had a baby, what do you think their baby's name would be? I asked Jay, and Jay was like, I don't know, Ben Jr. I'm like, Ben Jr., what the fuck? And I was like, Amy. And he goes, why? And I'm like, because the movie was called, fuck you. And then I'd go on and tell somebody else and stuff. So I love that. I enjoyed that, man. That was total Kevin Smith fan fiction writing. Having a little kid to cut to is an easy, wonderful thing for editing purposes. This is very simple scenes, like 2 shots, 3 shots. Fucking every Kevin Smith movie is a very simple scene. Park and bark. We're going to sit and we're going to let him talk. And this fucking speech he gives, this monologue that Ben delivers, he utterly fucking killed it in the best possible way. He said he was so happy to do the monologue. I was like, you crushed it, man. Everything you see in here, mostly from the first take of the monologue. I said, you crushed it. He goes, you said everything. You wrote everything I wanted to say right now as a dad. He's going, it was absolutely fucking perfect. It was easy for me to throw out there because this is how I feel. He didn't just execute the dialogue. He elevated it, man. And that's, Ben talking, but that's me in the movie. Like I'm in the movie as Silent Bob, and I'm in the movie as a fake version of Kevin Smith. But like the real Kevin Smith, didn't really have a place in this movie, other than like, I've got a kid, and so I know things about having kids now or whatever the fuck. But this scene, which didn't exist when I first wrote the movie, didn't exist until the last week of the movie, allowed me to put myself in the movie. Essentially, what this scene is saying is it's, Kevin Smith going, fuck you, I love making movies with my kid. Like, it's that simple, for all the people who are like, stop making movies with your kid. You fucking suck for doing that. I'm like, all right, I'll listen to you, stranger, and fucking give up sure joy in making art with my family because you don't want me to. So this scene is kind of me going like, well, this is where I am in my life right now. And if you're not into that, I get that. But this is what I want to do. And, like Clerks was what I wanted to do back then. Mallrats was what I wanted to do back then. This is what I want to do right now. And, I'll try to keep it like the old stuff and funny and, hopefully edgy and stuff. No edgelord, but hopefully there's enough stuff in there. But I'm leaning way into the heart, man. I've been doing that since like Chasing Amy, to be fair. So this one, you just don't expect it in a Jay and Silent Bob movie. But if you watch Clerks 2 and you watch Jay and Silent Bob Reboot right next to each other, they're kind of sequel. One, this is more or less a sequel to Clerks 2 in terms of the emotional, like the boys get to grow up just like Dante and Randall grew up. And here we get to do a series of excellent Ben Affleck little fucking puns and shit, and he got to act with Jay's kid. One day, Jay's kid will grow up. We're going to make one more Jay and Silent Bob movie. Ben, I love you. You were amazing in that movie. Thank you for elevating our flick. We're going to make one more of these movies. We're going to wait 15 years when Logan's 20, and then Logan can be the third lead of the movie, and Jay and Silent Bob will have to go to Hollywood to stop another iteration of a Blunt Man and Chronic, but this time they'll make the journey with Jay's granddaughter, and Logan, Jay's daughter, will play Jay's granddaughter. and Harley will play Logan's mom. So that's, if we all live long enough, folks, we're talking about 15 years from now. There's your next Jay and Silent Bob movie. Dan Fogler, the great Dan Fogler, man, who came out and shot that shit at 2 a.m, kids, and was still funny as fuck, man. Managed to wring laughs out of a very quick screen appearance. This is our Chronicon. It looks exactly like the San Diego Comic-Con. Our Chronicon logo resembles the San Diego Comic-Con logo. That's because the good folks at Comic-Con International signed off and said, oh my God, feel free, Kevin. And that was really sweet, man, because Comic-Con's obviously a big deal to me. We get to meet Kevin Smith, the director. We saw him very early in the movie and stuff. You know, fucking, this is, I remember when we made Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back years ago, 18 years ago, some people were like, ew, it's like a big, expensive fucking fan film. Somebody literally said, since we're on YouTube, like, it's like a $20 million YouTube fan film. And that's because I'm a big fan of Kevin Smith. But it was too early to be a big fan of Kevin Smith. I guess that was kind of gross. But, you know, after the heart attack, and I've been doing these movies for 25 years, people didn't get on my dick so much this time about like, ew, he's just fucking put himself and all his friends in the fucking movie. I love lines like this, where she goes, I hate this guy, forces his kid to be in everything he makes. And I'm sure she loved delivering that shit too. I loved fucking being this guy, man. Again, like, this is better than I've ever looked in my life in a movie and shit. So I was happy, like, to capture this. I wasn't supposed to be the guy on stage in the original drafts of the movie. Stan Lee was the guy on stage. That the, you know, spoilers, it's about to happen later, but that the bad guys are going after, not Kevin Smith. That doesn't make sense. But we lost Stan, and so I had to obviously change the flick, although we do get Stan popping up at the end. There she is, one of the first people signed on to this movie, Melissa Benoist, man, who's currently with kid, man. Her and Chris Wood gonna have a super baby. I said, don't put that baby in a capsule and rocket it off this fucking planet. Val Kilmer, ladies and gentlemen, he's about to take off that mask. Schwam, there he is, Batman himself. His manager had sent me an email and said Val's going to be in town in New Orleans with his Mark Twain movie. And so we got to talking. I was like, hey, we're shooting this movie. We've got a lot of cameos. You want to come play in it? And he was like, I don't know if you've been following the news, but I have a hard time speaking now. I've had some health issues. He's going, so perhaps if I was to come play, I could play Silent Bob, some poor cousin to Silent Bob, he wrote. He's a very eloquent writer. And I said, oh my God, you have no idea how close you are. I said, you know, I need somebody to play Blunt Man in our Blunt Man v. Chronic movie. And he wrote back, oh my God, that'd be fun. Do you know I played Batman once? And I was like, yes, Val. I heard that once, I think. That little shooting a canister, I literally did this bit in an episode of Supergirl with Melissa, where Manchester Black like shoots something at her and she catches it and it explodes in her face. So I fucking just bit the bit again, man. Throughout this movie, there's tons of moments where I'm like, I stole from myself. I stole from something else. This was huge for me, man. Look at that, man. Tommy Chong in the movie. Playing Alfred, the butler. He was just bliss, and gave us every delivery we needed. These three cats in this Blunt Man v. Chronic movie, an encore, Armin Kevorkian did our backgrounds and stuff. That's all green screen. He made a big cave for us and the car that's behind Val and stuff. None of the actors were ever in the same frame or together. They were never in the same room together. We shot Melissa by herself, then we shot Val by himself, and then we shot Tommy by himself on 3 different occasions. And, you know, just edited together and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, you'll see there's no, like, master of everybody together. And you know what? Doesn't fucking matter. Because at the end of the day, it's about jokes. Nobody's looking at this movie going like, oh, it better be, you know, visually eloquent. Like, you know, it's certainly more visually eloquent probably than Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, just because it's 20 years ago and I've grown up as a filmmaker. But, you know, I'm more about like, let's get in close so we can see them talking and shit. But these cats were great. And right here, bam, would have been, you know, cock knocker and stuff. And unfortunately, it's that guy. We cut back to Kevin Smith. What a letdown. You almost heard the audience every night be like, what? Because there was no Mark Hamill, man. Well, you know, there's a world of difference, kids, between 2001, when we made Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, And there were no more Star Warses ever. And 2019, when we made Jay Silent Bob Reboot, and Disney, has dictated that there's nothing but Star Warses. So we reached out to Mark, and he was like, hey man, you want to be Cockknocker in Jay Silent Bob Reboot? And he was like, the Empire won't let me. So we just didn't cast the part again. We didn't put somebody else's Cockknocker. But after having seen the movie on tour over and over again, I realized third night of the show, I said to Jason, fuck, we missed the opportunity. I was like, we should have, your fist comes through the wall. Melissa goes, oh, fuck. And then you cut to Cockknocker, and it's Kevin James. I was like, we could have just thrown him behind some green screen. Fuck. I don't know the guy, but it would have been a phone call to find out. But oh well, we missed it, man. Maybe when we do the special edition, where we put Jabba back in and shit, I could put in Kevin James. But Smod Squad behind us, man. Those are all cats that go to a lot of the Smodcast shows, particularly Fat Man Beyond, Big Daddy's over there, man. Brian Stoner, Chris, lovely fucking people and stuff. Whole crowd, there's all fans and whatnot. There's Mike. He made that actual jacket, the smoking jacket, the blazer, if you will. I'm wearing George Carlin on my chest, kids. He couldn't be there with us for Strike Back, but he's there with me on my chest and Reboot. There's all my wardrobe behind me. You see my purple coat, my jorts hanging up and stuff like that, and jerseys that I don't really wear anymore. And then this was a bit that, me and Ron had a good time with. We were like, let's do a little bit of Marx Brothers and stuff. So, we only do one shot that really ties us together, and the rest is just me cutting to me and me and me. This is, as a big Kevin Smith fan and a narcissist, I love this whole sequence. Every shot is me. It's like, my favorite actor, my favorite actor, my favorite actor. And then my favorite actress pops up and chokes me out and stuff. We're getting into the wacky third act, ladies and gentlemen, where, all hell breaks loose. And I get to tell a joke that I've been trying to tell for fucking 5 years at this point. There's Joe right here, man. You'll recognize him. He was the AD, in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. He was lovely enough to come back and do it again. And he's responsible for the House Party 4 reference. I said, go in, and I did what I needed. I said, you go in and do one for you. And he threw in the House Party 4 reference. I said, cha-ching, I'll take that. So anytime somebody from Strike Back popped up, it was, the audience dug it. And right there, I'm wearing a ponytail because I'm supposed to be Silent Bob playing Kevin Smith. And it's kind of a little shout out to at the very end of the cut sequence of the old version of Clerks, man. I came in with a long ass ponytail and looked around and stuff. But you can't. When someone's like, you arrogant fucking piece of shit, I get it, because I put myself all over the fucking movie. But you know what? If you're gonna make a movie and you remotely want to be in it, you better put yourself all over it, because nobody else is gonna cast me in fucking movies and shit. And then bam, this is when the switch happens and stuff. And Shan Yu reveals that she's not a podcaster from China. There's Chris Wood as Melissa's husband, sitting right next to Jesse, who plays Brainiac on Supergirl. I come from Supergirl world from time to time. The Cockknocker, Cockman. There's Mark Bernardin, ladies and gentlemen, playing the sleepy podcaster, my Fat Man Beyond co-host. The Commence Collusion plants us firmly in 2018, 2019 country and stuff. This is, the comparatively to Strike Back, this is when the girls show up with the diamonds, when the boys are on the Blunt Man Chronic set. And this moment here killed in all the screenings, where Jay was like, one of them was wearing a fucking catsuit. One of them was wearing a catsuit. I fucking knew it and stuff. That ain't me being thrown. That's a stunt guy. But this is me popping up, because I'll do that, but I ain't getting fucking thrown. Really, I just didn't want to make two people carry me. Heavy Metal Scrapyard, our scrap is metal, man. And there's our first look at a joke I was trying to tell for 5 years. Iron Bob, barely a joke, more of a reference. But Iron Bob, this entire third act with a con and Iron Bob and terrorism comes from the Mallrats 2 script originally. And it wasn't Chronicon, it was Comic-Con. And it wasn't Russian terrorists, they were Canadian terrorists in Mallrats 2. So, here, since I was writing the script while in a news cycle where it was nothing but Russians, collusions, Russians. It worked its way into the movie and stuff. Um, Somebody asked me if that was a reference to Bill Murray when I say, ow, yes. I can't act. I just steal all my shit from other people that I've seen act and stuff. But I enjoyed playing this version of Kevin Smith. I wish I had a better line than the jorts wearer. There were other lines I could have went with, but I left them in there. But I mean, this is arrogant to say, and I'm sure I'm fucking in the comments. People are like, you fucking suck, go to hell, and I've hated you my whole life. But as a big Kevin Smith fan, I love that delivery right there. You've been talking to my wife. If I was just watching that movie, I'd be like, fucking well done. That motherfucker can act. Once again, beautiful looking scene, man. The lighting and shit, thanks to Ron, our DP, who was just absolutely fucking amazing. Alice gets to speak. The whole movie, she's mostly been quiet. At one point she said brunt man. But now she gets to monologue and soliloquize and whatnot and do the villain speech. I'm so happy for her because for most of the movie she was wearing that black wig and stuff and not saying anything. But here she just owned the fucking show until she was in a frame with me, and then I was constantly fucking ad-libbing and stuff. Did you hear that one guy go, "What he say?" That's Stephen Root. This was one of the biggest laughs and moments in the movie where Jay, tells her, I'm your father, but also, where he tells a story about lying, or why sometimes it's okay to break a promise or something like that. Not lying. Where he's going to do it in a second. Because it killed every time we watched it public screen, man. The audience went fucking nuts. Where he's like, breaking a promise is the right fucking thing to do, right? We did this about 10 times, poor Jay. Walking and talking can be tough for him, and so we had to keep doing it over and over. But when we got to it, the mojus, if you will. But when he was just like, I didn't, because I told your mom I wouldn't come in her, and his eyes go wide. Oh, fucking kills me. Ben Glebe jumping up, tossing that fucking gun. He's got an ad-lib line here. I didn't write this line where he goes, "Why would it be real?" He said that, and it just made me fucking laugh. Now we're into the part of the movie where things are just getting fucking ridiculous. I mean, the whole movie's goofy and stupid, but now things are, very untethered from reality. Guns are drawn. You know why? I realize I grew up watching movies in the 80s, and all my favorite movies like Animal House and Caddyshack, they always have like third acts that go like off the rails where all hell breaks loose and stuff like that. And those are the movies I grew up watching. So naturally, those are the movies I wound up emulating later on in my career and my life and stuff. So yeah, it's one of those, like this third act is kind of nuts. It would have made more sense if it was Stan. We were going to have this cool sequence where, Stan is on stage with them, and then after Iron Bob burst in, which is just about to happen, Shen Yu saw that Jay and Millie and Jihad and Soapy took Stan and ran away with Stan, and so they chased, there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Iron Bob. I love the way Jay says Iron. I'm not in the suit. There's another Kevin in the suit, and he's the guy that was in the first Iron Man movie with Robert Downey Jr. And speaking of which, that we, remember when he's like, no gang signs. He's like, all right, go up, throw up the gang signs. That guy is the guy who played our Iron Bob. And so while we were shooting, he was like, it was nice to be in the suit this time for a change. That was fun. So in this sequence, the third act becomes as big and fucking silly as it does because, fucking it's a movie and stuff. And we've accomplished lots of stuff we have to do. Like, we had to get the father and daughter together, and we kind of already did that to some point and stuff like that. So at this point, it's just, let's have fun. And this speech was in almost every iteration of the script, and Jay treated it so fucking seriously. Learned Valerian by heart, practiced over and over again. And the first screening we had was the premiere at the Chinese theater, man, where me and Jay put our hands and feet in the cement in the forecourt. Amazing fucking honor that happened to us. That was the day of the premiere. But at the premiere, Hollywood premieres, like, industry premieres, generally speaking, aren't like fucking like fan screenings and shit. They're more reserved and stuff. So in that premiere screening, people weren't like going crazy about Jay doing Valerian. And he was like, I remember he was like, oh man, I thought everyone would like that. And then when we went on tour, very first screening was Jersey. And when he did that speech, like every night he did that speech, the audience went like nuts and started applauding. And so, you know, when he was on tour with us, he was like, they did like it. This is, of course, ridiculous. All of it is. But the KGB Sonic Disruptor. But this gives us a chance to let Soapy have a hero moment, man. And every night that Trishelle delivered this line, hearing is so fucking overrated, the audience all fucking applauded and stuff. I love Iron Bob knocking chairs over. I love this shot. Fucking, let's get aggressive, girls. And then they dive into it and stuff. This, you know, if you gave me another 10 million to make this movie, we made it for like 8 million bucks. You give me another 10 million to make this movie, the sequence would probably look the exact fucking same. I love this flick. Oh my God, I fucking love this reboot, as he says right there on screen. So you know, if you can at me all you want, if you're like, fuck, this movie's terrible and I fucking hate you and you suck as a filmmaker, that's totally fine. This movie is exactly what I wanted it to be. So I'll take all the heat if you didn't like it, because this was my fucking vision, man. And it was executed. It was elevated beyond what I hoped it would ever fucking be. We bring us to the denouement. There's a bunch of cut stuff in there. We're going to do an after, you know, the con scene with Will Ferrell as Will and Holly, as the not federal wildlife marshal, but Department of Homeland Security Marshal Will and Holly. But since we had the Ben scene come in at the end of the week, at end of production, the last week of production, I was like, you know what? We don't need that stuff. We got gold there and stuff. And so the movie's already like an hour 45. So I was like, all right, I can let that go. And we cut it while we were in production, while I was shooting it. I was like, let's stop. We don't need that. We'll go inside, do something more important. But I love this. I loved bringing her, Harley, or Millie, if you will, to the front of Quick Stop. It's a very Snoopy Woodstock moment to me. And I was a big Peanuts kid growing up, man. Snoopy was my first love, even before Batman. So when Jay, in the wide shot, Jay and his daughter walk into the front of the building, the Quick Stop building, it always reminds me of like Snoopy and Woodstock following him, walking, you know, to the house, walking wherever or something like that. We got Pearl Jam's daughter in this flick, which is kind of insane, man, because, you know, they're very picky about putting music in movies. And I put, you know, I was cutting temp cut of the movie. I put daughter in. I fell in love with it, but I was like, I know we'll never get it. And then Amine, who's our music supervisor, was like, let me reach out. And she reached out. We had to show them the scene, and they went for it, man. Suddenly we had daughter, and we didn't have enough to pay a bunch of money for it. When we did Tusk, we had to pay $250,000 for the Fleetwood Mac song Tusk, just for the song. We didn't pay anything close to that, man, for using daughter in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. So I will always be eternally grateful to the good folks at Pearl Jam, because, man, I couldn't think of it. Like, the whole movie is a big time machine trip back to the 90s. Like, at the beginning of all the live shows, I'd always be like, we've spent the better part of the last year building a time machine for you, ladies and gentlemen. You ready to go back to the fucking 90s with me? And the audience would be like, wah! So it was like a real nostalgia trip and whatnot. And for us to kind of come back and land at Quick Stop in the present, or, you know, fucking at the end of the journey, and father and daughter having this discussion and bonding and stuff like that, you know, this is everything to me. Jay telling Millie the story of Jay and Silent Bob's lives, you know, by way of like, we did this, and it's all the things you've seen them do in movies. Jay was like, while we were on tour, he was like, I just realized, man, we're making that scene, like Jay is talking to Millie about what Jay and Silent Bob have done, but it's really Jay, me, telling Harley about all the stuff that me and Kevin Smith have done and stuff. And I was like, yeah, dude, that's why I wrote it that way. You know, glad you picked up on it. I love him to death. He's my best friend in the world, man. And he made this movie, absolutely made. The two of them right there, the absolute stars of this picture. Big old crane shot Ron gave me. And that is, again, not Quick Stop. That's not New Jersey. That is Louisiana. And we found a building that kind of looked like it. Nate skinned it to look almost exactly like the Quick Stop. There's Brian O'Halloran returning, man. And everything comes full circle. You know, we have to cut the Pearl Jam song right there. Otherwise, we have to pay a lot more money because it becomes an end credit song. But instead, I got MC Chris doing Drinking Blood, Smoking 40s. And I always like to do the credits where everyone cracks up, man, because I grew up watching Cannonball Run and shit like that, and Hooper and and Smokey and the Bandit. And they would always do that at the end of their movies, man. My old man fucking loved that. This is very much like Cannonball Run to some degree, in as much as a cross-country journey and shit. But my old man, like, everyone loves bloopers, but my old man, we'd be watching those movies and he would crack the fuck up, you know, and it just made me like want to be in the movie business. Watching bloopers, watching people laugh, like, you know, crack up on camera. That's how I got in the movie business. I was like, oh my God, that looks fun. I want to do that. You know, that looks like the fucking circus. Like, you know, aside from what we see them do when the movie's playing, when the credits run, like you could tell they were enjoying them fucking selves and stuff. And I want that. So I like to put them in the movies that I do, not all of them, but like the bigger comedies, because there's Jennifer. Because it's a callback to that. The movie's full of fucking callbacks. When I watch this movie, I see a completely different movie than everyone else sees, because I see the story of my life like unfold. And everyone, you know, sees like a Jay Silent Bob movie, but to me, it's like a big ass scrapbook and stuff like that. So I love it. Oh, I love this movie. It was so hard to give it up when the tour was over. And you know, when you have a movie at the box office, normally, like you're lucky. I'm lucky if you get like 2 weeks at best, usually a weekend and stuff. A month if you're Endgame or something like that. Oh, and then here's this. There he is, the old man. Oh, we love him to death. This was a little moment on the IMDb boat from our San Diego IMDb Comic-Con coverage. And I was telling him, you're going to be in Reboot, man, so let's do a scene from it right now. And I include it because him laughing is nothing but joy for me, man. When people laugh, you see them for who they really are, because people present who they are in the world. And you know, laughter is an involuntary thing that kind of lets you drop all your defenses. And you see, look at him, look at the joy in his fucking face and stuff. And it's not like, I'm making Stan laugh. He's cracking himself up. He thought this was also fucking stupid and shit. And he was cracking up and whatnot. So I loved it, especially because at the end, he's just like, oh, you don't talk. But he goes, get the hell out of my scene and get me Jay. Perfect way to end. And it was thunderous, ladies and gentlemen. Every night of the tour, it was like, wow, when he came up. And then as soon as he made his Jay joke and we cut to the credit roll, the audience went absolutely nuts. It was such a beautiful time in my life. I'll miss touring that movie. I was sad when it was all over, man, but I'll get to do it again one day if they ever let us out, with Clerks 3. I want to thank everyone that ever went on that tour. I know I did a lot of talking about the tour. If you feel like, oh, this wasn't the best commentary track, don't worry. I'll probably do another one or two one day. You know, we got podcasts to do, so these are just as easily that. But you know, it's naturally I talk Tracy Landon. If you are ever making a movie, get Tracy Landon. Ron Levy, if you're ever shooting a movie, you need Ron. Nate fucking killed our production design. Kevin Smith, what an editor. He's barely an editor. That Kevin's a Jim Venable. He crushed this score. Kevin Smith doesn't edit. He just kind of, Armin did our special effects. I can't shout out. Otherwise, Robert Kurtzman did Iron Bob. Robert Kurtzman did the Dick and Boogie Long, and he did Iron Bob. Melissa did all of our beautiful costumes and whatnot. Amine, as you see, did our score. Now I'm just reading the shit on the screen. Oh, thank God, the keys are done, so I can move on from that. It was, you know, if you're lucky, you get like a weekend at the box office. If you're Endgame, you get a month, maybe 2 months at the box office where, you know, you're playing in movie theaters. We got to do it for 4 fucking months. I got to pull the taffy on the release of this movie for 4 fucking months, man. Every night, a packed fucking house. It was absolute bliss, man. I tilted the table in my favor. I didn't play the game the way most people play the game, but you don't have to. That's the beauty of this world, man. You figure out your own way into things, and you could do that. You don't have to do what everyone else does, and do what works for you. We made a lot of money with this tour and stuff, and we wouldn't have made a lot of money if we put it out traditionally. If we like spent 10, 15 million, 20 million marketing the movie and hoped that people showed up at the theaters, man, I doubt we would have made our money back when you put the fucking marketing money on top of the budget. Budget was 8 million. Marketing the movie would have been, let's be generous and say fucking 28 million. That means you got to make 56 million at the box office just to break even. Now, I've never made a movie made 56 million. Taking the movie out the way we did made so much sense, man. I was able to pay back my equity investors at the end of the tour, man. That's what we did with the tour money. It covered those cats and whatnot. So movie, you know, it is what you make of it. And for me, I love, oh, look at the boys. boy, this scene went fucking huge in every public screening. The kids returning from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It always, my God, they loved them to death, and it made me regret not putting this actual scene in the cut of the movie. It's just it didn't fit where it was because it was right after Jay and Harley split up and stuff. And so I was like, well, I can always put it in the end credits if it doesn't work tonally. But it's, boy, the audience loved seeing them again. And right here, Leah and Carucci's on Claws. Leah Nauer, I think that's how you say her name, for like 1 year was always like, can you put me, and there's Chelsea who works in our office, and there's the great Robert Kirkman. She was like, can you put me in Mallrats? Because we were going to make Mallrats. And one day I was like, she asked like fucking 200 days in a row. I was like, okay, we're going to make that movie, but then we made this movie. And so I was like, hey man, if you can make it down to New Orleans, I'll put you in there and stuff. And it's in the end credits, but proving if you bug Kevin Smith enough, they'll put you in a movie and stuff. There's Ben referencing like, Affleck was the bomb in Phantoms, but with an update, of course, for 2019. Release the Snyder Cut. The experience of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, man, of not only making it with all my loved ones, but then touring it and meeting all the other loved ones, man. The folks that came to see the movie, the folks that applauded for Jake and Nick, the two kids from the Strike Back, night after night, like they were family and they were happy to see him. The folks who sold us out every stop of the tour, man. Thank you. You made that dream come true. I dreamed of this tour, making the movie and then taking it out to people who would really dig it and stuff. And that's why I put all your names in the credits. See those folks who came out for, see the long list of names right there? Those are the folks that played extras in the movie. Generally, you don't credit those folks, but like, I was like, as we were putting the credits together, can we put all the names of all the people that were at the Chronicon? And it'll add another minute, but like, it'd be worth it. Because could you imagine, like, it's one thing if you saw yourself on screen, but then you saw yourself in the credits too. Like, they did help us make the movie, man. So to me, I was like, let's put them in there. They didn't have lines, so they don't necessarily get credits, but I was like, fuck it, let's do it. And there they all are. So I see those names. And they sent me, it's over there, I can't reach it, but they gave me a book, all those people, cards, trading cards of all the people that were extras, all signed with stuff on the back about their lives and how much it meant for them to be in the movie. It's so wonderful. I got the best fucking followers in the world, fans, whatever you want to call them, people that like Kevin Smith stuff. There's Emily is really my hair person and stuff. And all those people in that scene are people that did win contests and stuff, that various stuff we've done, like the chocolate contest and the hot topic contest. This is from that sequence that got cut. Will Ferrell would have been in this sequence, as would a return of Merkin. But as we were shooting, we shot all this, and then Jay and Silent Bob were going to come over and kick Kevin Smith, and they're like, "You're in Hollywood, man. It felt good to kick a director. Let's go kick a bunch of those." And how many people want to kick some ass? And then we would have went around beating up famous directors. A little PS, little Marvel PS here, man, that answers an age-old fucking question. Who put the gum in the locks in Clerks? Well, who do you fucking think? Mickey Skip Bags, thank you very much for your help making the movie, man. The good folks at Legion M, which many of you may be Legion M supporters, thank you. The good folks at Hideout, man, our Tennessee folks, thank you for that. Saban folks, Universal, who had the movie internationally, man. All these people allowed me to like make this dippy movie. So thanks for that, man. Okay. Wow, we did it. Look at that, man. We've been rolling for all this time, and now we're done. Let's see if, why didn't you take your tour to NYC? We did. We were totally there. I had my picture on the Missing Children's board in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Somebody said, oh my God, I remember that. That was so cool. I'm going to go back and read the commentary and, when we put it up and stuff. Let me slide over here for now. But it was an absolute joy, ladies and gentlemen, hanging out here tonight with you. Killed some time for me while we're on quarantine and whatnot. The Facebook Live version didn't pan out, but it looks like YouTube panned out. I hope this saves. But in the meantime, I'm glad you were here for it, man. Listen for this on the new episode of Smodcast, which will go up next week, man. In the meantime, thank you for listening to me blather on about a movie I love so dearly. Remember, folks, Weed helps everything. But that's not what I was going to say. Remember, folks, you know, your self-expression is your self-expression, and not everyone's ever going to fucking agree with it or like it and stuff. But don't mean you don't want to make it. It's worth making. Even if some people want to be like, go fuck yourself. It's like, thank you. And then you just go right back into it and stuff. Because at the end of the day, it feels good to make things. It feels good to say things, even if they're dopey, silly things and shit. Thanks for hanging out, my friends. I'm going to say goodbye to you and then wrap up the podcast here. Don't forget, man, Jay Silent Bob Reboot. You can watch it right now on Prime Video, iTunes, YouTube, Vudu, anywhere you can watch a movie streaming and stuff. Jay and Silent Bob Reboot toys and games. See these two games? Jay and Silent Bob Big Fat Card-On game. Jay and Silent Bob Smell My Finger game. You can find those on our Amazon page. There's a badass bunch of shirts that the good folks at the Chivery are making and stuff. So there's shit you can buy if you're into that. But, you know, there's a crisis going on. So maybe spend that money on tissues and toilet paper and hand sanitizer and soap and stuff like that. But if you got money left over after that, there's all that crap. Thanks for hanging out, man. Thanks for tolerating my commentary, my Quarantinentary for Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, man. You guys make it very easy to be me. Thank you. Have a good night, folks. Yeah, I want to stop streaming.